I want to welcome the GMs and the wives, the godly men and the warm, inviting, feminine, empathetic women out there. Today, I want to share a very powerful dream that I had last night, and it's on the second coming of Jesus Christ. So, the dream itself, I started out with walking with the modern day Jesus disciples, and we're all walking around neighborhoods and we're singing Beatles songs under the people. Which kind of an interesting image there, but it gets dark, and then we soon come across a house that has snow all over it, and we find Jesus's body on the sidewalk. And when we go over to see him, he is all at once resurrected, and all the snow all around us starts to glow blue, and the houses start to vibrate, and Jesus rises and he sees all of us that are claiming to follow him, and he says, "It is the will of the Father that I am here." And then he looks at me and he says, "And I'm here again." He was basically insinuating with that he never left. Then me and the disciples of Jesus go back to the main neighborhood that we were all singing Beatles songs to. And we happen to see that there are a lot of people that are not believing what we saw. And we go back to tell Jesus that Jesus is going to have to show himself to these people in order for them to believe. And Jesus is now in a basement, and he's cleaning. He's cleaning, and he's almost preparing for something. And he starts to put on these braces of armor, and he starts to put on this what do you call it? The chainmail. Starts to put on all of these different things, and all of a sudden he looks at us. And it's as if we understand at this point that he's preparing for spiritual war, and our king is preparing for spiritual war. And that's pretty much all that I remember from the dream. There was more to it, but it was a very powerful dream. I remember waking up and I felt this righteous indignation that I haven't felt for quite a while. It was as if God was showing us just how truly oppressed we are, and how truly misinformed so many people are, especially the Christians. So many Christians think that Jesus' second coming is going to be in physical form. And the fact that the dream itself showed that Jesus was there already. He said, "It is the will of the Father that I'm here, and I'm here again." And when he specifically said, "And I'm here again," he looked at me. And I remember being in the dream. It was a fairly lucid dream, even though it wasn't a fully lucid dream. I was filled with this internal spirit of strength that I haven't felt for a while. You know, to be honest, the last few weeks have been almost a recuperation of my energy levels. I'm still high in spirits, but it's almost like my energy levels, even though they're still very high, and even on my off days, I have more energy than most of the people in the world. But it's almost as if that my energy just hasn't been quite at peak performance lately. And a lot of that has to do with my diet, and a lot of that has to deal with just the overwhelming amount of things going on behind the scenes that you guys don't even know about. And I don't like to go on here to talk about the shit going on in the background necessarily, but I do like to make sure that people are like the experiences that matter are actually being talked about, at least unto the people that are watching these videos. And so my goal here is to ensure that you're getting the proper information that you need for your own spiritual nutrition, but also to help keep myself in line with God's will and God's will alone. I am out of line in many different ways apart from God's will. To the world, I am somebody that just does his own thing when he wants, how he wants it. Seems a fairly reserved person, and yet for some reason also it's a very open, compassionate, but sternly gentle individual. And that is something that I continually strive to be, because I do not want to make anybody feel like they do not belong in the world. We're all here for a reason, whether we understand that reason or not. And it is up to us to really take on and have the courage to make the decisions that require courage. But what are those decisions? Sometimes it's harder to discern what decisions to make rather than to even see what's available sometimes. Sometimes you can see everything that's available, but to have the discernment to choose is something else entirely. And other times people have it flip-flopped, where they can't even see the true options that are available unto them. And so you have to decide what it is that you're really trying to not just achieve, but to build and create in this life. What I'm aiming to do is to empower people to prosper all around the world that have eyes to see and ears to hear. I want to ensure that the probability of growing the godly population is increased. I want to ensure that people that are good-hearted, that have minds of their own, that have independent thoughts, are not ostracized by society simply because they don't want to follow along with what everybody else is doing. My goal is also to ensure that we participate in the spiritual fight every single day that we can, while we have the strength to do so. Because especially us young men out here, you know, I'm 27, I'll be 28 here in a couple months. And it's starting to, the tables are starting to turn in regard to, and much more heavily recently, in regard to relationships, in regard to leverage in relationships, in regard to power itself. And what I've come to realize is that power is not anything that you can be consumed by power, but power is not anything that is not given unto you except through God himself. And if God is going to give you a certain form of power, it's probably for a reason. It's probably because you've had something that you've been given. And power is not the same as fame. And fame is not necessarily power. A lot of people want the clout. A lot of people, this is why you see so many women with Instagram models or whatever. They'll just post Instagram pictures, and they'll post bikini pictures and all of that, and just to get the attention. And to them, that makes them feel alive, but only for a moment. They don't actually feel alive down the road. Whereas power, well, that's something completely different. It might take years to cultivate power, but once you have that power, the only thing that can take it away, and the only person that can take that away, is God himself. And the only reason that God would take that away from you is if you've abused it, or you've taken it for granted, etc. And a lot of these Christians out here misunderstand what exactly it is that the second coming of Jesus Christ is. Jesus' second coming is a consciousness. It's a form of consciousness. Consciousness is simply a vessel. It is entirely possible, and I'm not going to confirm nor deny this, but it's entirely possible that you've already lived multiple lives. It's entirely possible that I've lived multiple lives. We all have. We are simply the consciousness that is seeing through a new lens. And what's difficult to fathom for most people that do believe in God, or not to believe in God. Anybody really. It's either on the other side is absolute nothingness or an absolute infinity. Those are really the seemingly two options for most people to fathom. But what I fear most is not necessarily either of those things. It's the reincarnation. Because I know that what I do in this life will matter. And the cosmic destiny will be influenced by what I do in this life, not necessarily in order to just see what I am and how I've been and what I've been going through, but all in all, it'll be like a ripple effect for the people around me. Because once you're really awakened, you start to realize that when you're helping yourself become the best version of yourself, and you're helping others become the best version of themselves, what you're ultimately doing is helping yourself succeed and thrive. Because everything is like a mirror. And I'm not saying that you should take on or project the personalities or the individuals of everything, because this consciousness is all a individual by individual basis. I don't need to talk specifically. Like, have you ever noticed that you can say, for example, one thing to somebody and it can land 100%, but then you say the same thing to another person in the same kind of tone as well, and it completely lands another different way? That's because it's an individual by individual basis. This is not something that, and this is also one of the reasons why I think talking one-on-one in person has become so, for most people, it's just unfathomable. It seems like they don't know how to do it. The art of conversation is practically lost with most people that you talk to. Most people are not that interesting anymore. Most people are just not even that, they're not even trying to be impressive to themselves. That's something that I'm trying to do every day. I'm trying to impress myself with each thing that I'm doing, because I know where I've been, and I know where I am now is nowhere near where I was. And this goes back to what Jesus said in that dream, which was, "It is the will of the Father that I am here, and I am here again." God is already with us, whether we know it or not. There's a quote by Carl Jung. He says, "God is present, whether called or not called. God is present." That's the quote. And I think that is a very, very important understanding to have in regards to where we're at in this world, where we're at in this life, and to understand this, as I call it, the God-shaped hole in our society. So with that being said, I hope this message was useful and insightful. And until next time, peace be with you.